Everyone has a bad day where things don't quite go the way they want. Even the many different Links we meet throughout the Zelda series. I mean, sure, they have saved the world on many different occasions, but not always with the grace you would expect from the goddess's chosen heroes. In fact, on a few occasions, he has been more of a nuisance and terror for the normal citizens that he comes across. So, here are 10 of the most horrible things Link has ever done. Remember, some of these may be ranked in a different order than what you would have. If you're a fan of videos like this, please like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments below what order you would have them in, or if we missed one, what you think the worst thing Link has ever done is. Number 10. Give a love letter to a mysterious hand in a toilet and cause a kid to live out the rest of his life in manic depression. Let's begin with some harmless pranks before we move on to how Link has come close to tearing down entire religions, almost destroying the entire world, and other completely horrible, disastrous things. In Skyward Sword, you'll come across the side quest involving Callan's letter. Callan is falling in love with Karain. He writes a love letter to her in order to share his feelings in hopes that she will feel the same way. He trusts you enough and asks you to help him out and pass the letter to Karain as he is too shy. This is where one of the only choices with lasting effects happens in Skyward Sword. Remembering that Callan is actually a huge bully, you can give the letter to the hand in the toilet so he has something to wipe with. Or you can do the right thing and give it to Karain. If Link delivers the letter to Karain, she will jokingly consider going out with Callan and then wonder what Pippet thinks. Following this, if Link tells Pippet about the letter, he will interrupt a meeting between Karain and Callan to proclaim his love for her. Afterwards, Karain accepts his love, causing Callan to run away crying. Pippet then gives Link 5 gratitude crystals for helping them get together. Callan can later be found crying in Groos's room. Link can alternatively give the letter to the hand in the restroom. Afterwards, the hand can be found in Groos's room, stroking Callan while he sleeps. Having been moved by the letter he wrote, it will then give Link 5 gratitude crystals for helping it fall in love with Callan. So in this situation, you can try to help one of the only 3 bullies on Skyloft fall in love with a girl that he may or may not actually deserve, which actually ends up backfiring on him. Or you can give it to the hand in the toilet, which also causes Callan to cry and be haunted by the hand. Either choice leaves Link being the bad guy, depending on the perspective. Number 9. Grave robbing. Most Zelda games feature some sort of graveyard. In some of those, Link can be found at one point or another digging through graves, destroying monuments, capturing ghosts and spirits that reside in the graveyard. Might I add, these graveyards are filled with the loved ones of those living in Kakariko Village, Hyrule Castletown, and the rest of Hyrule. So what does Link do? He captures your loved one's spirit in a bottle. Then he climbs down in their grave, steals their belongings, like the shield, which likely belonged to a respected knight of Hyrule. He plays a game with the caretaker that consists of digging up random patches in the middle of the night. It's all, honestly, just some pretty weird stuff. Number 8. Terrorize Ordon Village as Wolf Link. An odd but hilarious moment in Twilight Princess, Link is transformed into a wolf, and one of the first things you have to do is find a sword and shield. How do you do that? By running around an already scared Ordon village and terrorizing your neighbors, some of whom are just little kids. Then what does Link do? He steals one of the only swords and shields that we know are actually located in the village, leaving everyone pretty much defenseless to take on any evil that comes to the village. Number 7. Breaking everyone's pots. Basically almost every Zelda game. A tradition since A Link to the Past, Link just walks into people's houses and completely wrecks the place. Not only is he destroying valuable pots, but he is also stealing everything he finds inside. This goes a step further in Ocarina of Time, where you come across a room entirely filled with pots. What does the guard do to stop you? Nothing. Number 6. Driving the Music Man Crazy, Ocarina of Time. This one is a bit more sad, a little more than making Crowland depressed. After all, he'll eventually get over his school crush and move on to one of the other 3 or 4 girls his own age. This time, Link tortures poor Guru, the Windmill Man. He is happy, calm, and seems to have no problems at first. However, if you find him as an adult, he looks borderline furious. According to him, 7 years earlier, a child with an ocarina played a song that messed up the windmill. When Link takes out his ocarina, Guru is reminded of the kid with the same ocarina. But despite this, he teaches Link the Song of Storms, which I have to say is actually one of my favorite Zelda songs of all time. When Link learns the song successfully, the mill wheel starts spinning rapidly, effectively upsetting Guru even more. If Link then plays the Song of Storms for Guru as a child, the windmill will spin out of control and drain the well. Considering 7 years takes place between the present and the future in Ocarina of Time, this means Guru was suffering from his anxiety because of Link for 7 years. Number 5. Leave Kakiri Forest and not explaining exactly why the Deku Tree is literally rotting away. Let's say you've lived your entire life with about 20 other people. Some are your best friends, some try to teach you new things, some help you out, and some are rude, but they are all your family, and the only people that you've really ever known. You all live together, helping each other out. One day, you're called to talk to the only adult figure that you've ever known. The one everyone looks up to, loves, and also just happens to be seen as the deity they worship. After trying to save the Deku Tree and doing what he asks, he dies while talking to you. While you make your leave to fulfill his requests, you are asked by the bully of Kakiri Forest what's happened to the Deku Tree. But you just ignore him. You immediately leave your family, the ones who have taken care of you since you were a baby. You just leave, leaving them all to find out on their own that the only father figure they have is now dead. Number 4. Leading the Happy Mask Salesman to Termina, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. This one, it may not be entirely Link's fault. It could be the fault of the creepy old man who follows a young boy in the woods. Maybe this is Navi's fault for leaving Link in the first place and forcing him to look for her. Maybe it's the Skull Kid's fault for just being a thief. Honestly, here, the finger could be pointed in a few different directions. The Skull Kid in Majora's Mask is said to be the same Skull Kid Link teaches the song to and sells the mask to in Ocarina of Time. The Skull Kid likely ends up growing a love and passion for these masks. He eventually comes across the mask salesman in the woods and takes Majora's Mask from him. If Link wouldn't have tried selling the masks for the Happy Mask Salesman, the Skull Kid would have likely never stumbled upon him in the first place. In another scenario, some believe the salesman actually followed Link into the Lost Woods, as is hinted to by the salesman himself when he tells you that he's been following you. So if Link would have never wandered into the woods searching for Navi, the salesman would have never followed him through the woods, which means the salesman never would have had the masks stolen, and Termina would have never been doomed. After the events of Ocarina of Time, Link should have just went home and went to sleep. After all, he saved Hyrule in the past and the future without resting. I think he deserves a nap. Yes, the people of Termina would have still had to deal with an annoying imp causing mayhem and torturing people, but that could be solved easily, and isn't nearly as bad as having a moon crash down, destroying everyone and everything they have ever known, on the same day as a marriage and the annual carnival is planned. But most importantly, Cafe wouldn't need to go through puberty twice. Number 3. Completely destroying the belief system of an entire race. Ocarina of Time. In Ocarina of Time, you come across the Gerudo, a strong, proud race of females with one ruler as king, who is born every 100 years. It is implied many times throughout the different games that the women of the Gerudo tribe believe they are the dominant gender. In fact, they won't even let a male enter their village. What does Link do? He sneaks past all of the Gerudo, sets the construction workers free, who, I remind you, the game hints to them being arrested and imprisoned for basically being perverts. Link defeats the strongest warriors they have, who watch over the prisons, then crosses the desert that no one is supposed to be able to pass. He kills the 2 females who gave birth to their king. He comes back to their town and beats their high score in their archery game. He outsmarts them and completes their almost impossible dungeon that they've designed. Basically, Link single-handedly completely destroys their entire belief system, leaving an entire race to rethink their outlook on life. Number 2. Let Ganondorf get the Triforce, Ocarina of Time. This is another that isn't necessarily Link's fault. Ganondorf tricks Link into collecting the 3 spiritual stones for him. He gains the trust of the 3 leaders and receives the spiritual stones. He is given the Ocarina of Time and learns the Song of Time. He opens the door of time, he then pulls out the Master Sword, which evil is said to not be able to touch. Ganondorf uses Link as his pawn to gain access to the Sacred Realm. By Link pulling out the Master Sword, he is frozen for 7 years inside the Sacred Realm, leaving Ganondorf free to touch the Triforce. If Link would have stayed in Kokiri Forest, yes, the Deku Tree would have died, but he dies anyways. And that is certainly better than Ganondorf gaining the power of the Triforce. The point is, if Link would have never left Kokiri Forest, the Door of Time would have never opened. Ganondorf would have never touched the Triforce. But how could Link have known that? He couldn't. However, it still remains true. Sure, as I said, bad stuff would have happened. The Gorons, as we've seen in other games like Twilight Princess, can punch their way through heavy rocks, so they would have eventually been fine. Yes, maybe Princess Ruto would have likely died inside Jabu Jabu, but that is still better than almost the entire race dying from being frozen. Number 1. Link brought the end to the entire world, Link's Awakening. What is the worst thing Link has done? Try bringing the end to an entire reality. Every living person and creature on Koholint Island gone. During the game, it is hinted that the island is a dream, and that none of it actually exists. However, if Link completes the game without dying, an additional cutscene can be seen after the ending credits. Both the Game Boy and Game Boy Color versions of the game show Marin as a seagull, while the Ballad of the Windfish theme plays in the background. This may either hint that Marin had her wish come true and was saved from the fading dream world. If it all were in fact a dream, how could Marin exist outside of the dream while everyone else vanishes? Well, a theory suggests that it is actually a parallel world, similar to Lorule, the Sacred Realm, or the Dark World, which requires some sort of magic to enter. Perhaps Koholint Island requires the same type of magic, but this time from the Windfish. Once the Windfish sleeps, it enters the realm which Hyrule is in, and when it wakes up, the island returns to its own realm. Now, that might sound a bit odd, but remember, a lot of strong spells, magic, and seals within the Zelda series require the person casting the spell to be asleep. As an example, think of Skyward Sword, where Zelda is actually required to sleep in order to keep the seal on demise. So in the same sense, Koholint Island requires the magic of the Windfish. Once it sleeps, it enters the realm which Hyrule is in, and when it wakes up, the island returns. Now, if this theory isn't true, and Koholint Island doesn't simply return to its own realm, that means Link is partially responsible for destroying all of these lives. Sure, it may not be real to Link, but to Marin and the rest of the inhabitants, it is real. What gives Link the right to stop them from existing? In the same way the 3 golden goddesses created their own reality known as Hyrule. As Ocarina of Time tells us, they created the law of the land and all of the life found on it. So perhaps the Windfish used his power to create his own kingdom and his own reality, just as the goddesses did. Link causing the Windfish to wake up and the island to vanish would be similar to the goddesses deciding to get rid of their own Hyrule and everyone in it. Kinda makes you think, right? The videos on this channel are funded by supporters on Patreon like you. If you're a fan of this channel and would like to join on videos, receive shoutouts, watch videos early, have your questions answered, or have your topic discussed on our podcast, please consider supporting on Patreon for these and many other rewards for just $1. Shoutouts for this video includes Link Use the Triforce, Rusty Caulfield, Lovable Christy, Give Time 15, Shadow to Us, Robbie Morgan, and Lunarium. I want to thank all of you for everything you have done to help support this channel.